Hi, I'm standing today, and I feel very powerful about it. So we'll see what the dynamic of this video is. Anyways, today I want to talk about The Lord of the Rings. I just read the series for the first time this last, I started it at the end of 2022, and then I finished it early this year, 2023. And I've got a lot to say about it. I've got a lot of thoughts, and I just wanted to kind of talk about it. So the question I posed in the title of this video was Lord of the Rings that good? In my opinion, it absolutely was. I loved it so much. So that's going to be the energy going into this video. Disclaimer, this is going to be full spoilers. I'm not holding back from spoilers, so be warned. And also, normally I kind of like to give a little summary of the book, but everyone knows what Lord of the Rings is about at this point. So I feel like I'd just be wasting everyone's time. So Lord of the Rings. Before I started reading the books, I had watched the Lord of the Rings movies like a countless number of times. I love them. And so I was probably a little nervous going into the books just because I didn't know how I was going to feel about them, especially in relation to the movies. And also, I hear differing opinions online all the time. Some people absolutely love Lord of the Rings. You know, they're obsessed with it. They're in it, you know, and some people think it's like totally overrated and don't like Tolkien's writing style and just think it's boring and all this stuff. So I really didn't know where on the spectrum I was going to fall. But thank God, I loved it. I loved it so much. I just freaking loved it. Because I had a much more negative video that I just posted, my Way of Kings discussion video. I just wanted to do this because it was going to be a lot more positive, and I just thought it would be a good balance, honestly. So here we are. We're talking about Lord of the Rings. This is going to be more of a thought vomit video rather than a polished kind of review. This is only my first time I read it, and when I was reading it a few months ago, you know, I hadn't started this channel yet, so I wasn't taking as extensive notes on the books I was reading. So for now, I just want to do just like the best thing I can think of to call it as a thought vomit. So that's what I'm going to do. So like I mentioned, I love the movies, excluding the Hobbit movies. I love the 3 Lord of the Rings movies just so freaking much. So I was definitely interested to see what was going to be different between the movies and the books. There's a lot of differences, honestly, more than I kind of thought there was going to be. It's not bad. It's not good. They're just differences. Real quickly, I just want to talk about The Hobbit. Obviously, it's a little prequel to The Lord of the Rings. It's not a direct prequel. Like, it kind of is, but it's kind of not. You know what I mean? The characters show up again, and the ring obviously shows up again. But it's not like the story from that book directly feeds into Lord of the Rings. But either way, I just wanted to kind of read it because I was interested in how The Hobbit was going to be. And it's so tonally different from Lord of the Rings. It's kind of funny. I wasn't really expecting that. It's so much more fun, so much more light, silly. It's almost more episodic too than Lord of the Rings is. But I really loved The Hobbit too. I loved all the characters. I really liked Bilbo. I liked Gandalf in it. And obviously I like the book way better than the movies. So let me talk about Fellowship now. When I was actually in the midst of reading Fellowship, I remember thinking like, this is kind of boring. I don't know how I'm going to feel about this by the end. And then after I was done, I remember that I just couldn't get it out of my head. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I think that's always a really good sign because you want like art, which I consider books art, you want art to stick with you after a while. I really appreciated Fellowship. I appreciated what was done in the book. And looking back on it, it was such a really nice book. Fellowship is a much slower, it takes its time with the journey, you know, all that kind of stuff, which I get can definitely be polarizing. But I really liked how Tolkien described each part of Middle Earth. So in Fellowship, there was a lot of time spent in the Shire. I think it's around, I'm looking through the book now and I'm thinking it's around 100 pages before they even start leaving. I mean, in my edition, which is 450 pages total. So that's almost a fourth of the book that they're spending just in the Shire before they even leave it. And so I get that can kind of be off-putting. Personally, I loved the world building in the Shire. I loved just like the time that we spent there. I could probably have a whole book just in the Shire. So I really loved it, but I also understand that that's, you know, that's a really slow moving plot. I can see both sides of it, but personally, I liked it. On top of that, there's a lot of time before they even reach Bree, which in the movie, I think after they leave the Shire to the time they reach Bree is not really that long. But in the book, there's so much that happens in between point A and point B. So again, I can see the frustration, but I don't feel it personally. Then once the Fellowship is formed, I was in love. I love the Fellowship. I love their dynamic. I love how diverse species-wise it is. I love the journey. I especially loved when they got to Lothlorien. I love the way that that place is described. I love the way Galadriel is written. Oh my gosh. Like, I want to meet her. Like, he did such a good job of selling her on, like, how royal and like majestic she is. Like, I want to meet her. I also really liked Legolas more in the book. In the movies, he's not really given much to do. He just like stands there kind of and spouts off a poetic phrase or two every once in a while. But in the book, he has so much more personality. He has much more lines. He's more involved. He interacts with the hobbits even more, which in the movies, I feel like he doesn't at all. Like, do you even know Frodo? I don't know. But yeah, I definitely liked how Legolas was written in the books better. One thing that really surprised me is that Arwen is like barely in the books at all. I was surprised about that. I didn't know that they gave her a much bigger role for the movies. She is technically at Rivendell when the whole Fellowship party is there, but I think she's mentioned like once, and then I don't think she's ever even mentioned again in the entire story until the very end of Return of the King when she marries Aragorn, and then she's mentioned in the appendices too after Return of the King. Also, there were a few characters in Fellowship that I almost wish had been in the movies, although like I can't begrudge them for cutting characters because that's more actors to pay, more hair and makeup to do, all that kind of stuff. But I thought Glorfindel was kind of cool. He was just another cool elf that we could have gotten. And same with, what was his name? The one that they met on the road to Bree. What was his name? Gildor. It was Gildor. I liked him too. He seemed very wise. He was just kind of a calming presence. I liked when the hobbits stopped and just kind of chilled with Gildor on the road. It was fun. So Tom Bombadil, I have to mention Tom Bombadil. I didn't dislike him, but I can totally see why they took him out of the movie because like he adds into the theming and the messaging of the story kind of, but he doesn't really do much for the plot. Well, he doesn't really do anything for the plot. So I can see why that was just some stuff they had to trim. Even though I would have kind of liked to see how he's imagined on screen. But oh well. And then yeah, at the end when the Fellowship splits up, my heart was broken. I was like, you guys, no, you can't do this. Even though I knew it was coming. I had seen the movies. Still, I didn't like it. And Boromir's kind of corruption, his little corruption moment was really good. I really liked that moment. So I really loved Fellowship. Okay, now on to Two Towers. Two Towers was quite a bit different from Fellowship in terms of pacing. Two Towers seemed to be a little more exciting. It kind of kept my interest a little bit more. It kept me more engaged while I was reading. I really liked it. I really liked that we were introduced to so many more aspects of Middle-earth. I just always really like when sequels do that. Sometimes I think sequels get too comfortable with the world that has already been presented and they don't introduce any new concepts or places or people or whatever. I think a good sequel will expand the world that we've already been introduced to, and Two Towers does that beautifully. We get to see Rohan, we get to see Theoden and Éowyn and Éomer and Faramir. We get to see Isengard. There might be more that I'm forgetting, but that's, already a pretty good list so far. Two Towers I had a lot of fun with. I wasn't sure when I was reading it how Tolkien was going to split up the three diverging storylines we now had at this point. One was Frodo and Sam, one was Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas, and the third was Merry and Pippin, who had gotten abducted by orcs. So yeah, I wasn't quite sure how he was going to split that up because in the movie, obviously, it just kind of cuts back and forth between the three every so often. And in the book, it splits off into two different sub-books. So book 3 was Aragorn's party and then Merry and Pippin. And then book 4 was just Frodo and Sam. So I didn't love that so much because I definitely liked Aragorn's part better than Frodo and Sam's. Is that sacrilegious? I don't know. But I did. I liked it better. So I didn't really love the fact that we were just cut off from that storyline for the whole half of the book and we just had to be with Frodo and Sam. Like, I kind of wish it was more balanced, but whatever. It was a choice he made and that's fine. Moments I really liked in Two Towers. The Battle of Helm's Deep. I think it's called Battle of the Hornburg in the book. But anyways, it's the same thing. I loved that scene. Oh my gosh, it was really good. It was a lot shorter in the book than it was in the movie. Or it felt a lot shorter at least. I guess you can't really measure that. But, you know, the fight in Shelob's lair with Frodo and Sam. Oh my gosh, that was so exciting. I hate it in the movie because I don't like spiders. So I don't like it. But reading it was so much better. So I really liked that sequence. And then also, I kind of liked how we got kind of a look at the politics between the different orcs and the Uruks, between Saruman's orcs and Sauron's. They were so different. Like, there was this whole scene, at least one, if not more, where they were just talking about, again, just like the politics between each kind of side of their races. So that was kind of fun. It was just different. It's something that wasn't really explored in the movies all that much, if I remember correctly. So it was just cool to see that. It was something different. And then the Two Towers ends on a huge cliffhanger. If this was back when The Lord of the Rings was first being released, if I had to wait between Two Towers and Return of the King, I think I would have just been crushed. I would have been like, no, how dare you do this to me? It was a big cliffhanger. But it works. Okay, now, Return of the King. Let's talk about Return of the King. Yeah, Return of the King is like probably one of my new favorite books of all time. Return of the King was incredible. Oh my god, it was so good. The book made me like Eowyn and Faramir way more than I liked them in the movies. I thought they were given so much more depth. And that's not to say they were shallow characters in the movies at all. Not at all. But there was still just more, again, depth given to them in the books, because they were both introduced in Two Towers. There was just more given to them, and I could really just like dig into their characters, and it was really nice. I really liked them. Also, the climax of this book with the, you know, the final kind of battle and Frodo and Sam and Gollum going to Mount Doom to destroy the ring. So well done. You know, even though I knew what was going to happen, I was on the edge of my seat still. And dude, the amount of times I was absolutely sobbing during this book is not even funny. I'm not even kidding. I cried so much during this book. So I was listening to the audiobook of this and I was working, like I was at my job, you know, I work from home. And so I was listening to this while I was working. When the charge of the Rohirrim at Pelennor Fields happened, that scene was just so freaking incredible. First of all, I have to say, favorite scene of the entire trilogy. That is my absolute favorite scene. But also, when that scene happened, I started sobbing. I'm not kidding. Tears were streaming down my face. I was bawling my absolute eyes out just trying to do my job. And thank God I was not in the office because yikes. It was so incredible. I was so overcome with emotion out of the build up to it was so good. I loved the characters at that point. The meaning of that battle, it was so significant to the story. It was just so good. And I'll probably cry again when I read it again. Also, when Sam sacrifices for Frodo at the end, like he gives up, what does he give up? Does he give up his water to Frodo or his food or something? He basically says like, oh, I'm fine, Mr. Frodo. You take my whatever. It was just such a lovely moment that I just couldn't help it. I was like, oh my God, I'm freaking bawling. I love Sam. Oh my gosh, Sam is just the best. Also, when all the fellowship was saying goodbye at the end, I was freaking crying again just because they went through this whole journey together. They all mean so much to each other. And now they're all just going their separate ways. I hope they keep in touch. I was so sad for them. I loved it so much. I loved the whole fellowship. I didn't want them to ever split up. So that part was very sad too, but happy at the same time because it means that the threat is, you know, vanquished. And then we get to the Scourging of the Shire. And I didn't hate it. In fact, I kind of liked it because first of all, I like that it just gives us an answer to what happened to Saruman and Wormtongue. Also, I like that it was just something that the hobbits could do on their own. Like it was their own little obstacle to overcome without Gandalf's help, without anyone else's help. And also, I didn't want the story to end at that point. So I was like, yes, Tolkien, please stretch it out. I can't say goodbye to this yet. So I didn't hate it, but at the same time, just like with Tom Bombadil, I can definitely see why it was cut out of the movie because it would have just killed the pacing. I think it would have just really been weird in movie form, but like I said, I didn't hate it in the book, so I didn't hate anything about these books, like freaking Christ. And then at the end, when Frodo left Middle Earth, it was such a good ending for Frodo. Oh my gosh, his whole character journey, but it definitely ripped my heart out. The ending of this book was amazing, just freaking amazing. I loved it. Everything was just so good. I really don't hardly have any negative things to say. Just know that I absolutely loved this. Oh my gosh, it's just like the best thing ever. I'm definitely going to reread this. I can see myself doing a regular reread of Lord of the Rings. Absolutely 100%. So it was good. So anyways, I don't know that I have that much more to say about Lord of the Rings. It was incredible. Read it. Just do it. Just try it. You might like it. Let me know how you felt about Lord of the Rings if you read it. I'm so interested to see what other people have to say because I feel like people fall on so much on both sides of the spectrum here. So let me know. Otherwise, that's all for me. Until next time, have a really great day. Farewell.